I don't know what kind of history buffs you are. Some of you I know, like history was your least favorite subject in school. Any kind of history classes that you might have taken even in college, you just suffered through the best that you could and hope that you survived, a C is passing, so we got through it. Or some of you are like really into, history kind of things, or maybe it kind of depends on the kind of history. I don't know. I don't know that I'm necessarily a history expert, but I like history type things. And so I watch like different documentaries and stuff on different, historical figures and things like that. And I've seen a couple of series on U.S. presidents and just kind of knowing some of the background behind. I mean, we know the really famous ones, Washington, Lincoln, guys like that. But there's some of the presidents that are like, okay, I probably had to memorize that name at some point in my schooling, but really don't know anything about that person. So I like seeing those different biographical kind of sketches of different presidents. Now, if I was to ask you guys, just, name your favorite president, we would get some Washingtons, we would get some Lincolns, I don't know, some Kennedys, just a whole bunch of different answers on who your favorite one was. My guess is that almost nobody would pick, do we have a picture? This guy. How many of y'all even know, just show of hands, how many of y'all even know without looking it up who this guy is? Anybody? Anybody want to take a guess? Somebody said Van Buren. Anybody else? Huh? Not Taft. Taft was a really big guy. He ended up getting stuck in his bathtub one time because he's really big. It's not Harrison either. It's not Jackson. Madison. Not Fillmore. Buchanan. Ah. Yeah. James Buchanan. And so, and I'm sure if I said, hey, who's your favorite president? There's nobody in this room being like, oh, Buchanan, my man. He's the guy. Because pretty much all of you, I don't know about people online, pretty much all of you didn't even know who this was. Now, older pictures, older presidents, we don't always know, we don't have as many pictures of them, so we don't know who that guy is. And I don't know how much you know about Buchanan, but if you go through like different lists that historians and other people make of the greatest presidents of all time, or if they rank them, like here's all the presidents that we had, and here's our ranking system. Buchanan is usually either at the bottom or next to the bottom of every single list. Now, a lot of you are like, I didn't even know we had a President Buchanan, and that's fine, no judgment. But even if you knew that there was one, you recognize that name, you don't know about when he was in history. So just so you understand, this isn't going to be a long history lesson, don't worry about it. But just so you understand, he was the president right before Abraham Lincoln. And so when the country was dividing itself over slavery, and there was these new territories coming in, and should we let these new states have slaves, and there was all this controversy about the slavery issue and about North and South and all these different things that were going on in our country at the time. Buchanan was like, it'll work itself out. And really didn't even worry about it, and just kind of, Congress will figure it out, and really didn't do anything. As a matter of fact, the things that he did that even dabbled in the slavery issue kind of made it worse. Not only that, the economy started tanking during his presidency. Not only that, but he came up, or I don't know if he came up with it, but he kind of pushed for annexing Cuba to become part of the United States. And that completely flopped. And there were some military things that were going on in Mexico at the time, and that backfired. And just everything that he did just went wrong. Or he did nothing at all. Now, here's the thing that I didn't know about Buchanan. Before he became president, he tried multiple times. At least 3 that I know of for sure. 3 different times before he actually became president, he tried, he was trying to get on the ticket, and his party ended up not nominating him. But he wanted that job. For years, he wanted that job. And then he got it, and I don't think it was what he was hoping it would be. And he didn't do that great a job at it. And when Lincoln wins the election and he shows up for his inauguration, they're riding in a wagon together to the White House. And Buchanan famously said to Abraham Lincoln, if you are as happy about entering the White House as I am about leaving, you must be one happy man. And I share that with, I probably took more time than I should have. I start talking about history and I get rolling. But I share that with you this morning because it fascinates me that here's this job, here's this position that he wanted for so long. And when he finally got it, it looks like it ended up being nothing like what he wanted it to be. My guess is that there's a lot of us that have experienced that in different aspects of our lives. And we started talking about this last week. These great expectations that we have. We get into this marriage, we get into this dating relationship, we get into this friendship group, and we have this expectation of what it's going to be like. And it's going to be good, and it's going to be a blessing, and everything's going to go great. We're never going to have any problems. And then the problems come, and the reality of whatever is going on in our lives in that particular aspect that we had these great expectations for, this vision of how it's going to be, it's not the reality. And that can be devastating sometimes. We talked last week about how hurtful that can be in different relationships with, parents and kids, kids and parents, spouses, friendships, relationships with coworkers. That walk into this relationship having these wonderful expectations of what this connection is going to be like, and then when it doesn't end up being that way, that can be really hurtful. That can be devastating to some of us. And so we talked about that last week. And this morning, I want to take this in a little bit down a little bit different path. I'm still thinking about these expectations, but when it comes to my job, when it comes to my workplace, what kind of great job expectations do I have? Because my guess is that there's some of us in this room that we applied for a job and we got it, and it was everything that we hoped it could be and more. It's just been a wonderful workplace, and the salary's been great, and I love the team that I'm working with, and it's awesome. And if that is the position that you're in, if that's the way your life is going right now, man, praise God for it, because not everybody else is that way. And I know there are people in this room who applied for a job or who got moved to a different position, and they walked into that job and thought to themselves, maybe this will be good, and maybe I'll get some really good coworkers, and maybe this will be a really fun job for me to be a part of, and the salary's going to be good, and all the different things that we had in our minds of how good it was going to be, and it is not. And that can cause more problems than just this job isn't fun. It isn't what I thought it was going to be. When our reality in our workplace doesn't meet our expectations, doesn't meet our vision, it can affect other aspects of our lives as well. And that's what I want to talk about this morning. And maybe when I was going into this job, maybe my expectation was that maybe not that I thought that there wouldn't be any stress and anxiety in this job, but I didn't think it would be to this level. And now I'm experiencing stress and anxiety, and it's causing me, health issues. It's causing me mental issues. It's causing me to lash out more at my friends, my family, because of the stress I'm experiencing in this job. Maybe I just feel stuck in my job. It's not that it's necessarily a bad place. I just feel like I'm not advancing. I'm not really accomplishing anything. I'm just kind of showing up and doing my thing and leaving. And I thought there was going to be more meaning, and I thought I was going to have more purpose to my life because of this job, and I just don't feel it. Maybe it's just a toxic work environment. And maybe I expect it to be kind of in a team or in a workplace where we have good communication and mutual respect for each other, and we're working together on things, and we support each other. And the reality is that I'm stuck in the middle of gossip and backstabbing and people fighting against each other and talking bad about each other, and people not doing what it is that they're supposed to do, and there's criticism and there's judgment. Maybe I just don't really enjoy what I'm doing. I applied for it because I thought it was going to be a good job, and it's not that the job itself is bad. I just don't really like doing that particular thing. I mean, I've done that before. I've shared with this church family before. One time I was in high school, and the guy offered me, to pay me pretty good, spend a few days in the back of his warehouse washing cans of Jolt. I don't even know if I remember Jolt soda. All the sugar and twice the caffeine was their advertising slogan. But I was going to get paid a lot of money. Just that's all I got to do is wash cans of Jolt, because the truck that had been carrying these pallets of Jolt had overturned on the highway. And so there were a bunch of them that had broken and spilled all over each other. And I thought, man, that's easy money. I'll do that. You know what I figured out after about 10 minutes? This ain't fun. Just taking a rag and washing off cans of Jolt and putting that, and then they still sprung leaks anyway. Like, what was the point? And sometimes we have jobs like that. I thought I would really enjoy the money. I thought I would really enjoy this work environment. And it's not that it's bad. I just don't like this job. Maybe my job is causing me to make, for lack of better wording, just ungodly choices. things that I thought I would never do. I'm having to make compromises, or at least I'm being encouraged to. I'm sacrificing my marriage. I'm sacrificing my family. I'm sacrificing my morals and my values. And that can be really hard. And that's just a few reasons. I mean, we can come up with a lot of different reasons of why our particular job that we're in isn't meeting our expectations. And let me say this, there's always going to be issues in whatever job you take. There is no perfect job. There's always going to be things that you're going to have to deal with and work through. But sometimes we have in our minds what this job is going to look like and what it's going to look like for me to be in this particular position. And when it's far from it, that can be devastating to me. So why are we talking about this morning? I mean, why does it matter if my job isn't meeting my expectations? Or maybe the question you're thinking this morning is, okay, I understand, I agree, sometimes my job doesn't meet my expectations. Why are we talking about this at church on a Sunday? Well, I think this is where a lot of us are in life. I mean, there's a survey that was done just this past year in 2023 of just American employees, both white-collar and blue-collar jobs, just the American workforce in general, all sorts of age ranges. 50% of the American workforce says that they either somewhat dissatisfied or very dissatisfied with their job. Now, does that mean they're going to walk away from it? Not necessarily, but it's just not meeting their expectations. It's not what they thought it was going to be. And it's becoming more and more difficult then to continue to do that particular job. Half of our workforce. So of all the employed people in this room and people watching online, half of you, statistically speaking, are not happy with your job. It's an issue. It's an issue in our churches. It's an issue in our neighborhoods. It's an issue in our families. I think it's important for us to talk about as a church family. Not only that, but here's what Solomon says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Now, Solomon lived, hundreds and hundreds of years ago and lived in definitely a different culture than what we live in. And he was the king. He had all the power and all the money and all those things. But he noticed some things about life, and God gave him some wisdom about life. And here's what he says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 13. He says that everyone may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all his toil. This is the gift of God. Now, he doesn't say to find just, for it to be the best job ever and everybody be jealous of the job that I'm doing because my job is so awesome. He says just to find satisfaction, just to enjoy what it is that I'm doing, to find fulfillment and purpose in the job that I'm doing. When I experience that, that's a gift. That's a gift that God has given me. If you go on to the next chapter, or 2 chapters later in chapter 5, in verse 19, he says this, moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possessions and the ability to enjoy them, to accept their lot and to be happy in their toil, this is a gift of God. Solomon is saying, when I enjoy my job, when I find satisfaction and fulfillment in the work that I do, that's a blessing from God. That's a gift from God. And I believe that ultimately, God wants me to enjoy what it is that I do. It's not that God, we've talked about this before as a church family, it's not that God is always going to make everything go right in my life and that there's never going to be any problems. As a matter of fact, Jesus promised the exact opposite. If you're living in this world, he says in John chapter 16, you will have problems, you will have trouble. But overall, I think God wants us to enjoy and to find purpose and a meaning in the work that we do. Not necessarily wealth or authority or power, but joy and purpose. That's the opportunity that he's gifting me when it comes to my job, when it comes to what I do for work. But I might be looking at my job right now and going, okay, where's the gift? I don't see it. I don't see God's blessing in my work. I'm not experiencing much joy in what I do. And again, to take this even a step further, if my job has caused me a lot of stress, a lot of anger, and a lot of frustration, that's not healthy for me. But it can cause me to take out that stress and anger and frustration in hurtful ways against other people. Now, I may have lashed out on my family. I may have started to get into different addictions just to cope with what's going on in my job. I may be falling into depression. I may be just feeling like less valued and less needed at my job. Or I may have completely lost my sense of purpose and in the process start to lose my faith. If God is really supposed to be blessing me and taking care of me, why don't I feel blessed and taken care of in the workplace? Where's my gift? This is the gift of God. And this is why it matters. This is why I think Scripture speaks into this. And how even if this isn't something that you personally are experiencing in your workplace, even if your work environment is meeting your expectations, maybe there's some things we can share this morning that you can offer to somebody else that needs some help with this as well. So what do I do to fix it? How do I get to a point where I start, my vision for my job starts to actually match my experience? Well, let me give you some things real quick to at least start moving that direction, to start making my expectations become my reality. And the first thing is this: I need to pray for insight. And when I was first working on what I want to share with you this morning, I thought just, talking, well, pray about it. And that sounds, I've shared with you that before. When there's different struggles in life, I think we need to pray about them. I'm positive that I probably don't even pray enough about different things that I need to be praying to God about. And I think that's one of the things, when there's something that's hurting, when there's something that's not what it should be in my life, I need to be praying about those things. But I wanted to kind of give you a little bit more parameters for this morning, to say that we need to, especially when it comes to trying to figure out what to do about the job situation that I'm in, that I need to pray specifically for insight. I need to pray for discernment. I need to pray for clarity, for the right perspective, for wisdom. If I'm struggling with my work environment or with my coworkers or with finding my purpose, it's easy for me to tell myself or somebody else, just say, well, just pray about it. Well, I don't know that the prayer is necessarily, God, fix my job. Maybe it is. But I think where we need to start is, God, give me the insight, give me the wisdom, give me the perspective that I need to view this situation the way that I need to. Going back to Solomon, when he became king, in 1 Kings chapter 3, his dad was one of the greatest kings in Israel's history and was loved and adored by everyone, was called the man after God's own heart, was this amazing warrior and this amazing king, and the kingdom had never been as strong as it had been under him. As a matter of fact, all the kings after David, who was Solomon's dad, all the kings after him were compared back to him. All the kings were, this particular king either followed in the steps of David or didn't. He's kind of the standard. Can you imagine being Solomon and having to fill those shoes? And Solomon comes to the throne, and God even comes to Solomon and says, I loved your father so much, I want to do something for you. I'm going to do something good for you because of my relationship with him. What do you want? You want riches? I'll give it to you. You want power? I'll give it to you. You want success in all your military campaigns? I'll give it to you. What do you want? And of all the things that Solomon could have asked for, Solomon asked for wisdom. But here's how he asked for it. 1 Kings chapter 3 and verse 9. As he's praying back to God, he says, so give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. Solomon says, God, I need wisdom. I need discernment. I need clarity. I need to know the direction that I should go, because I don't know what that is. I've never been in this position before, and I don't know how to handle this, and I want some wisdom on how to handle this. And folks, I think that's the kind of prayer that I need to offer if I'm struggling in my workplace. Before I start praying, God, strike my boss with lightning. Maybe that's the wrong prayer altogether. God, fix it. God, give me a better salary. God, whatever. I think the prayer needs to start with, God, help me see what I need to see about this job. Give me wisdom in how to handle this work situation, how to handle this particular conflict I'm having at work, whatever the situation is. God, make it obvious to me if I need to do something different and be in a different position, or if I need to stay. Give me some clarity. That's where the prayer needs to start. I need to pray for insight, not just God, make this situation better, but God, give me wisdom and how you want me to walk through this situation that I'm in. You see the difference? If my workplace situation isn't meeting my expectations, the first thing I need to do is pray for insight to how to handle it. Second thing that I need to do is probably adjust my focus. What is it that I'm focusing on when it comes to my job? What are the things that I pay the most attention to? What do I fixate on? Is it the negative things and the things that I don't like about the job itself, or about my coworkers, or about my boss, about my employees? Is it all the things that I wish were different? Is it all the things that I wish they would just do this thing the way that I want them to? Do I ever see any of the good in my workplace? Because Solomon says this in Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 27. Whoever seeks good finds favor, but evil comes to one who searches for it. So Solomon says, in essence, if I'm looking for good, and if I'm looking to do good things are going to happen. And people are going to treat me well too. But if I'm looking for bad, if I'm looking for evil, I'm going to find ways to do bad things and to do evil things, because that's what I'm looking for. And in essence, you find what you're looking for. You find whatever it is, and you see whatever it is that you focus on. So if all I'm focusing on is all the negative things that I don't like about my job and about the way I'm being treated and my coworkers, if all I'm doing is fixating on all the things that I don't like, then that's all I'm ever going to see. And of course I'm going to want to get at, it's not meeting my expectations. It's not meeting my vision, because my vision is completely focused on all the negative. Do I focus on the positive? Is there anything in my job that I can see that's good? And maybe that's one of the things I need to do. Instead of being convinced in my mind that this is just a terrible job and I have awful coworkers and everything is negative and I hate everything about this place. What if I adjusted my focus? What if I made an intentional effort to find something good in my coworkers? To find the things that I like about my job, to see at least some positive aspects in the situation if they're there. The thing is, as you're sitting there right now, if you have kind of a negative work situation that you're in right now, at least my mindset would be, there is nothing positive. It's all negative. I mean, that might be the case. But more often than not, the reason I feel that way is because that's all I'm looking for. We do that in our families. We do that at church. I'll focus on all the things I don't like, and therefore, that's all I ever see. And that's what I assume about this relationship, about church, about my workplace, because I'm just focused on the negative. I need to change my focus. I need to adjust what it is that I'm paying attention to and fixated on. Number 3, I need to communicate. We talked about this last week, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here this morning. But if my vision for what my job should be is not matching my reality, and if I've made some effort on my own to deal with it and try to make the situation better and try to adjust my focus, and it just doesn't seem to be improving, then I need to find a way to communicate that, either to my employer, somebody at HR, to my fellow coworkers, like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with right now, and this is the way I'm seeing things, and let's talk about that. Or at least somebody that can help. Now, I want to be clear. Sometimes I say I'm going to communicate about our work situation to my coworkers. And what that means is I'm going to sit down with my coworkers and point the finger and tell them all the things that they're doing wrong and why everything's their fault. That's not communication. Okay? That's talking at somebody, not with somebody. And I can do the same thing with my employer. I can do the same thing with my employees. When I'm talking about communication, I'm talking about sharing. I'm not gossiping. I'm not griping. I'm not bringing things into the conversation that have nothing to do with the conversation. I'm talking specifically about a specific thing and how it could be better. How I'm feeling in this work environment, or in this particular situation, this particular project, or around this particular coworker. I'm addressing it with them in a healthy way, and I'm allowing them to respond, because maybe I do have the wrong focus. Maybe I'm not seeing, maybe I don't have all the information. I'm not seeing things the right way. I'm listening and I'm sharing. I'm being honest and sincere, but I'm not attacking. Because Proverbs chapter 12, verse 18 says, there is one whose foolish words cut like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. It may be a difficult work situation. And my words, my tone, my body language, my actual words can make it worse. That's what Solomon says. Sometimes I can use words and tones that just cut like swords. It takes an already painful situation and makes it even worse. Or my words can bring healing. The way that I communicate, the way that I share and listen and talk about this can bring healing. It can make things better. So I need to avoid insults and verbal attacks and just honestly share what's on my heart, what's on my mind, so that we can find a solution. So I need to pray for insight. I need to adjust my focus. I need to communicate. And then lastly, I need to keep giving full effort. If I don't like my job, if I don't like my work environment, if I don't like my coworkers, it would be natural for me. It would be very easy, I guess I should say, for me to just quit trying. And just do the bare minimum. Just do enough not to get fired, or at least not to get in trouble. And that's not the kind of worker that God calls me to be. I'm called to use the gifts and the talents that God has given me to the best of my ability, no matter what. In the book of Colossians, in chapter 3, Paul is talking to the church in Colossae, and he's going through different kind of life situations, and here's how you should handle this. And he talks to parents, and he talks to kids, and he talks to husbands and wives, and he talks to slaves, because slavery was an accepted practice back in the first century in the culture that Paul lived in at the time. And he's not endorsing slavery. He's not saying this is a good thing. He's just talking to people who are enslaved people who are also Christian. And you got to think about somebody that's enslaved back in this time. It's probably not a position that they wanted to be in. If you were to tell them, or if you'd ask them, hey, you like your work? You like your work environment? Probably not. And even if it was a good situation they were in, they're still enslaved. It's not ideal. It's not what their expectations for their life probably were at some point. But here they are. And it would be natural, it would be easy for some of the people in those positions to be critical and to be judgmental, and to be hateful towards their masters. We would understand that. We would probably feel the same way. Here's what Paul says in Colossians chapter 3 and verse 23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. Did these slaves have a right to complain? Absolutely. Did these men and women probably have an expectation for their lives that was a lot different than what they were actually experiencing? I would imagine so. But Paul challenges them to work hard, not because it will keep them out of trouble, and not even because their masters necessarily deserved it, but because they have a greater master. And he's the one who had given them their strengths and their abilities, so they need to honor him with the way they do their work. Now, I think the same principle still applies to us. And we can be really critical of our workplaces sometimes and think that we're made to be slaves and all that, but we're not enslaved like these folks were. But I think the principle is the same. That even if things are negative, even if things are toxic, even if there's stuff going on in the workplace that should be better, and legitimately should be better, and this may not even be the healthiest place for me to be, and I might even need to go to a different job. That might be something on down the line. In this moment right now, even if it's a negative situation, I am still called by God to work to the best of my ability. Because it's not about my boss, and it's not about my paycheck. It's about my God. And I wear his name, and I need to bring him honor in everything that I do. So Paul says, work to the best of your ability. Could it be better? Maybe. Should it be better? Probably. But that's not going to keep me from doing the best that I can. My God calls me to work and give full effort because I'm bringing honor to him. Now, I think this is how we get the ball rolling. I think this is where we start. If I'm in a workplace and if I'm at a job where it's just not what I expected it to be, where my reality is not meeting my expectations, I need to pray about that and pray for insight. God, what is it that I need to do? How do I need to handle this situation? Make that obvious to me. I need to adjust my focus. I need to start at least looking for the good and not seeing everything about that situation as negative. I need to communicate about that to somebody that can help in an honest way, but in a helpful way. And no matter what, until something is different, I keep working to the best of my ability, to the best of the abilities that God has given me to work with. That's important. That's what God calls me to do. When I was a kid, I think I've told you before, my dad preached at a little church every Sunday, but then his full-time job the rest of the week was as an auctioneer. He had an auction business in Fort Smith. And when I was a kid, we went through, I would help out, especially during the summer. There wasn't anything else going on. And so I was free labor, and I had to help out with the auction business. Or sometimes on Saturdays, I didn't have school and stuff like that. And there was a stretch for a little while there in the 80s when my dad had, for guys that were helping him on the auction day itself, for himself and the guys were helping him, and anybody that was, clerking and writing down the information, and the people who were working by the computer to keep track of what all everybody bought, what all the purchases were. Everybody that was employed by Dale Brown Associates auctioneers on that particular sale day was given a gold vest to wear. Okay? And it was just this thin gold vest to kind of button, one button in the front, and on the back, real big, had an auctioneer's gavel and said Dale Brown Associates auctioneers. And so my job at the auctions was to wear my gold vest. This is when I was a little kid, and my job was to run tickets. And what that meant was that whenever we got somebody there with a clipboard and somebody buys something, they write it down and who bought it and how much for. And they would do that multiple times as a little ticket book. And then I would go, once you get to about 5 or 6 tickets, and I would take those tickets and I would run them back to wherever the office was and give it to those people there, and they would put that information in the computer. And so when the auction was over, they would have a computer printout. Here's everything that you bought. Here's how much you paid for it. Here's how much you owe us. Make sense? I was a ticket runner. I was a gopher for anything. Whatever anybody needed that worked for my dad, I was one that had to go get it in my little gold vest. And part of that, especially when I was a kid, like in elementary school, I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I've got the gold vest on. Yeah, I'm an employee of Dale Brown Auctioneers. That's right. And as I got a little bit older, I was like, this gold vest. And there were times I didn't want to run tickets. And I would rather sit on a couch and visit with people or go play or do something else. And I didn't want to do whatever it was that I was supposed to be doing. But the problem was, myself and everybody else, whoever's wearing that gold vest, that's what people chose to think about Dale Brown Associates auctioneers. Whatever they saw, whatever actions and attitude they saw in the person wearing the vest, that's what they thought about him. He's the boss. These are the people that are working for him. And it's a reflection of him. Whoever's wearing that vest, they're a reflection of him. Does that make sense? People's perception of my dad and my company was impacted by what they saw in me. And sometimes I was a troublesome, obnoxious kid, even at the auctions. And when they saw that in me, it impacted how they saw him. If I'm a saved child of God, if I believe the story of Jesus to be true and I have put my faith in him, and I have confessed him to be the Lord of my life, and I have repented of my sins, and I have been washed in the blood of Jesus, and I have his Spirit living within me, I am a child of God. And if I am a saved child of God, I wear his name. And what people see in me impacts their perception of him. And the words that I use and the way that I treat people and the way that I work impacts what they know about my God. So we were in Colossians 3 just a minute ago, right? Go down a few more verses to verse 17. Paul says this, whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. I wear his name, even at my job. And I need to approach my job and my coworkers in a way that not only benefits me, in a way that brings him honor. Because that's what I'm called to do. Now, there may be some of you this morning that are going, okay, this is a great lesson, but it doesn't really apply to me because I really like my job. Awesome. I hope you continue to enjoy it. There are some of you that are going, this doesn't apply to me because I'm retired. I don't have a job anymore. I understand that. There are some of you, maybe even younger, going, I've never had a job. They won't hire me at my age yet. So this doesn't apply to me. There's some of you, like I said, you really enjoy your job. Here's my question. Whether it's at your workplace, whether it's with your family, whether it's out in the community at your kid's ball game, whether it's when you're walking down the aisles of Walmart, what do people know about the God whose name you wear because of what they see in you? What do people know about him because of what they see in me? That's the question. And I'm not saying that in a guilt-inducing way. It's just the reality. And the beautiful thing is, that our God looks at us who are wearing his name. And we mess up all the time. We fall short. We screw up. We do the things we shouldn't. We do the things that we said we never would. We do the things that we said we would never do again, and we did it again. We constantly mess up and fall short. And yet, our God constantly looks at us in the middle of our mistakes, in the middle of our flaws, in the middle of everything we're doing wrong, and says, that's one of mine. I am so proud that that's my child. I am so proud of him. I'm so proud of her. I'm so glad that he or she wears my name. That's the kind of love that God has for us. And if you don't know that to be true, man, I wish you would, because it's the absolute truth. I am called to honor him, not so that it will just necessarily benefit me in some way, but because I'm so moved by how much love he has for me. The fact that the creator of the universe thinks I'm amazing. The fact that I am a precious possession of the God of all should move me to want to bring honor to his name by how I treat people, by how I do my job, by how I love my family. Does that make sense? I'm called to bring honor to him because I'm wearing his name. Not because I'm scared of what kind of reputation I give him, but just because I want to give him a good name because of what he's done for me and how much he loves me. So I know this is one of those lessons that doesn't necessarily lend itself to, I really got to turn my life around kind of moments. But we are going to offer the opportunity this morning. We're going to stand together here in a second, and we're going to sing a song. And actually, it's a song that's actually a prayer to God, asking God, man, God, just help me today to do things that bring you honor, to say things that bring you honor, to take actions that honor your name. And as we're standing there, as you're standing there singing that song, and as I'm standing here this morning, when we sing that song together, if in your heart you realize, man, there's a lot of things that I've been doing that haven't been bringing honor to his name, and I want to do something about that. I want that to be different. I need help with that. We invite you to come to the front while we're singing. Just share that with us. And we're not going to judge you. We're not going to criticize you. We're going to love you. We're going to do whatever we can to help. But even if you don't move from where you're standing while we're singing, use the words of this song as a prayer to God this morning. God, help me today. Help me this week to do things, to say things that are going to honor you. But this church family can help you that we want to. So let us know how while together we stand and sing.